why multidisciplinary support really matters, key domains of intervention, nutrition, behavior, medical treatment, pharmacy, psychology, and exercise. The challenges and mitigation strategies, next steps, and implementing. GLP-1 receptor agonists, whether you love them, hate them, but they're here. You cannot ignore them. They're here to stay. And we have more coming in the pipeline. So very, very important. GLP-1 physiology, we've been hearing all day about this. So this is, they actually improve satiety, calm our food noise, slower gastric emptying, insulin sensitization, suppress appetite, play a critical role in regulating glucose levels by enhancing insulin secretion and suppressing glucagon release. Indications, at first, FDA approved for diabetes, then for obesity, and then cardio. Now we love the cardiometabolic benefits as well. Common side effects, GI side effects, nausea, vomiting, pancreatitis, fatigue, dizziness. Now, the benefits of using GLP-1s. So they have a morbidity and a mortality benefit. The LEADER trial done on liraglutide has shown that definitely there is decreased cardiovascular events, non-fatal MIs, and non-fatal strokes, and also decrease in microvascular events. SUSTAIN trial done on semaglutide associated with significant reductions in HbA1c and significant weight loss. SUSTAIN trial also 26% lower risk of primary composite outcome of death and cardiovascular causes, non-fatal myocardial infarction, and non-fatal stroke than those receiving placebo. So why GLP-1 treatment isn't just set it and forget it? So like my patients say, just give me the shot and I'm done. No, it doesn't work that way. So why multidisciplinary support is necessary? So GLP-1 is not a magic bullet. You have to, everybody doesn't qualify for this. There are contraindications and patients do not tolerate. But besides this, patients whom we do give GLP-1s, they have complex comorbidities. So they already have other complications of diabetes already. So whether it's obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, renal disease, all these are already there. And a single specialist, whether it's a primary care doctor or it's an endocrinologist or just one person, whoever is prescribing this medication might not be able to cover all the aspects to support this GLP-1 treatment, like nutrition, physical therapy, medication management, behavioral change, cardiovascular risk, renal monitoring. These patients have complicated needs. They really need nutrition, behavioral change, psychosocial treatment. There are high risk of GI side effects during titration, and some patients have to drop out because of side effects. So we really need an entire team to manage. So when these GLP-1s were approved, FDA did specify that they're approved in addition to a reduced calorie diet and increased physical activity, which most people just ignore. So core goals of supportive intervention. So what are we trying to achieve here? Sustaining weight loss after pharmacotherapy, managing side effects. The most that we worry about is the muscle, the bone loss, the lean mass loss, nutritional deficiencies from rapid weight changes, building long-term habits. So we want to definitely tell our patients for behavioral change, improve long-term adherence. Roles of multidisciplinary teams. So we have the physicians, nurses, pharmacists, dietitians, behavioral health specialists, and we need a team collaboration. It has to all come from the apex. So the leadership has to be involved and they have to help. It comes from a leadership and institutional support. Us as doctors, medical and clinical monitoring. So regular follow-ups, monitoring glucose, hemoglobin A1c, lipids, renal function, liver function, body weight, body composition. Watch for contraindications, side effects, keep adjusting the dose. Coordination of comorbid disease management, hypertension, lipids, cardiovascular disease. Reinforcing adherence and expectation. Contraception, definitely, we don't want any surprises. Regular eye exams, especially in diabetics. Medication management, medication reconciliation. Definitely want to review other drugs that they are taking for interactions. Patient education on correct route of administration timing. Adjust with dose titration schedules. Monitor adherence, side effect reporting. Consider adjunctive pharmacotherapy, example, antiemetics when appropriate. Managing GI side effects, we had a great presentation. So slow titrating the dose, eat slowly, small portion sizes, And then avoid very fatty foods. Drink fluids, not with the meals, but before or after. Even if they're using protein shakes, this is a small tip. Ask them not to use a blender. Instead, just do it with a glass, because that decreases the fluff, because they are already have a very small portion limit. Use anti-emetic strategies and then consult clinicians. Lifestyle interventions, very important to even address sleep and stress, because without this, they're not going to achieve their goals. This is a good slide. This tells us about the weight loss and the lean body mass loss with the GLP-1s. The big red dot that we see in burgundy, that is actually bound, which has the maximum weight loss out of all. And so we see the weight loss, and then we see the preservation of the lean body mass. So with the higher the weight loss, the less the preservation of the lean body. So GLP-1 treatment and weight loss, the step 1 trial. So 1/4 of the weight loss is actually fat-free mass. And what can we do about the fat-free mass loss? So higher protein intake, especially during calorie restriction, especially when our patients are on the GLP-1s, attenuates the loss of the lean body mass. Nutritional interventions. So it's very difficult to manage with the appetite suppression and maintain the nutrition as well. So mindful, protein-forward diet, baseline nutrition assessment, macro and macronutrients, tailored meal plans, high protein, healthy fat, nutrient-rich diet, strategies to mitigate side effects, small meals, spacing the fluids, avoid ultra-processed foods, sugar, limit carbonated beverages, alcohol intake, maintain fluid intake to avoid dehydration, monitor for nutrition deficiencies, muscle loss, and then ongoing dietitian follow-ups. Weight loss and muscle mass loss. So this slide actually tells us that half of the free fat loss is actually muscle mass. This is another expected muscle mass loss during the GLP-1 treatment based on the step 1 trial. Almost half of the lean body mass is muscle loss. Again, exercising. So what kind of exercise actually helps our patients with obesity and to retain the lean muscle mass? So there's a comparison between aerobic exercises, resistance, and a combination. So definitely, I mean, with the resistance exercises, there is the least amount of lean muscle mass loss compared to combination and aerobic muscle exercise. Resistance training prevents the decrease in the muscle quality induced by caloric restriction. So when the muscle mass is lost, there is also degradation of the quality and the quantity both, and which resistance training really helps. This is just a comparison of just weight loss, body composition change over 6 months. And just body composition change over 6 months will actually, you will see that there is lean muscle mass loss, even with just 6 months of weight loss. When you discontinue the GLP-1 therapy, what happens to the fat mass with and without resistance exercises? So with resistance exercise, once you stop the GLP-1s, there is a less amount of muscle mass loss with resistance exercise. Again, a comparison where there is loss of lean muscle mass loss and body fat loss with liraglutide. So folks who do resistance exercises along with the GLP-1s definitely preserve their lean muscle. Why are we talking about muscle so much? Because muscle actually helps physical function, definitely mobility, clinical outcomes, and it is a mortality predictor as well. And if folks who are more prone to having a poor diet, they recommend that they should have high quality protein along with a high protein intake. So 1.4 to 2 grams per kg per day. Physical exercises. Best exercise always what patients can adhere to and can do. and assess the baseline fitness, mobility, gradually increase the activity, aerobic and resistance exercises, but resistance definitely better, more effective. We've already seen that. And tailor the exercise according to the patient preference and limitation. Behavioral and psychological support, very important. Motivational interviewing techniques can be used, goal setting, self-monitoring, identify shifts post-weight loss, especially shifts with body image, cognitive behavioral therapy and emotional eating, adherence barriers, health coaching, group therapy, address weight stigma, expectation management, stress management, sleep hygiene, use of digital tools, tracking can be also very helpful. This is the slide I've made for all the clinicians just to summarize what each person in the team can do and assign their role. So y'all can take back to your institutions and get guidelines based on these. Yes, I'll come to that. To support and health coaching, so patient educational materials, group classes, workshop, health coaches, ongoing accountability, very, very important. Setting realistic expectations for the rate of weight loss, the plateau, encouraging self-monitoring, community support, peer support, group sessions, implementation, coordination, workflow. So this is another slide I've summarized so that everybody can look at what you can do at what each person can do at each visit. The timeline. Sorry. Key metrics. So this is actually what we definitely want, key metrics. Definitely patients want to see how they feel. We want to discuss that with our patients. Very important for patients. Very important for us clinicians because we want to know how our patients are doing, and then important for the health system to monitor how their program is. The challenge, definitely anything good comes with challenges. So challenges are patient adherence, dropout after stopping the medications, GI side effect, tolerability, emotional readiness for the lifestyle change, resource constraints, like you said, staffing, funding, communication, and silos between all the teams, patient access, everybody is not tech savvy, insurance and cost barriers for GLP-1 medication strategies and best practices. So slow titration, transparent discussion, already said, let the patients know beforehand, it's coming. Building intrinsic motivations, autonomy, clear role definitions, regular multidisciplinary meetings, use of protocols and decision aids, telehealth and digital tools to extend reach, patient-centered customizations, data tracking, outcome monitoring to refine the approach. Integrated care models, so collaboration, very, very important, communications between the different teams, by EHRs, weekly case reviews, patient-centered care coordination, feedback loop for adjusting intervention. So this is the real implementation in the real world. So it's not like these are all fairy tales. It actually works. So these are cases where we have used and implemented these approaches. So healthcare system initiative where they have had a multidisciplinary team to increase GLP-1 and SGLT2 prescribing. Then a federally qualified health center, also for reduction of HbA1c. Then another liver transplant program for BMI over 40 to treat them with the GLP-1s. Implementation tips. Everybody doesn't have the same resources, so start small, pilot multidisciplinary team for a few patients, use standardized protocols, templates, leverage existing resources, example, telehealth community program, train the team in communication and coordination, monitor metrics, retention, side effect, incidence, weight loss, patient satisfaction. Sustainability and scaling up. Financial considerations, reimbursement, staffing models, shared roles, telehealth supplements, integrating with the chronic health disease programs, scalability to other clinics and populations. What's there for the future? Digital health, AI, remote monitoring, wearable integration, tele-coaching, virtual group sessions, biomarkers to predict tolerability and response, research gaps. Summary and key takeaways. GLP-1s are powerful, but GLP-1 therapy works best with the team-based approach. A multidisciplinary team spanning nutrition, behavior, medical, and pharmacy exercise therapy is critical. Robust protocols, communication, patient centeredness are key for success. Monitoring feedback ensure success. Right, so thank you.